What is up? Got another Garo, and today it's going to be a different decade to all of the stuff that I have shown before in Garo, because I have the 2002 April edition of Garo, and the magazine had pretty much finished in 2002 October. So this is actually, I believe, the third last Garo issue to ever be created. And the cover is by Takahama. So I haven't really read. Actually, I'm pretty sure this is my first Garo issue from the 2000s. I mean, there weren't many to begin with. I have mainly been reading stuff from the 70s, a bit of 60s, and a little bit of 80s. But this is my first one that is from the 2000s, and it's there's so much that I don't know in terms of all the manga here, because reading in the 70s, you get a feel for who's in that decade. A lot of the Gekiga artists like Oji Suzuki, Shinichi Abe, you get a feel of it. But because this is my first time seeing a lot of this, it's going to be tough uh, understanding who's who and all that. So I will do my best. But we might as well get started. Here's a list of all of the stories in manga in here. There's actually quite a bit. So we'll start off with this first one. It's a very short one. It's more like just color illustrations. This is titled Dream Travelogue by Junko Mizuno, who I believe has had stuff published in English. She is known for her gothic kawaii style. That's what it's termed. And yeah, the first couple of pages are her illustrations. So if you're a fan of her, there you go. And the first manga chapter that we have is Nekojiru Udon, and it's called Seitaka. And if you notice here, this is by Nekojiru Y. So what that means is, if you ever see Nekojiru Y, it means that it's not actually Nekojiru who wrote and drew this chapter. It is her husband, Hajime Yamano, because after her passing, her husband picked up her works and continued to draw the world of Nekojiru in under this handle here. So anytime you see a Y, just know for yourself there's her husband that's doing this. So this was actually my very first Nekojiru chapter that I've ever read, and this got me into watching the OVA that was made, Nekojiru Soup as well. That was really, really good. But the chapter we have in this Garo issue is of course, the two cats. I forgot their names. I think it's one's like Nyata and the other's Nyanko. The sister, the big sister, on the right over here, she's the one that talks, and the little brother doesn't really say anything. He always just says yeah. That's all he says. But they're with their grandpa, just playing around, sort of arguing, and the cats, they want to go to town because the oranges that the grandpa gives them aren't sweet. They're pretty sour. So they're given some money, head to town, and they get a little distracted because they go into this old lady's shop and they read manga there and just spend the whole day. But they do finally get the oranges. They go back, but they find themselves lost, and it's raining too. So they try to find their way back. Always love how weird everything is in Nekojiru. They try to find their way back, and on a path they notice these pointed hat people just standing there over here. And I believe Seitaka is like the name of some deity. I'm not too entirely sure, but this could be it. So they get scared, they run away, but they eventually do make it back home to their own village and house. And these deities disappear, and they are reunited with their family. And so this is just a advertisement for Nekojiru Udon 3. But yeah, that was my very first Nekojiru story. Definitely love it. Because it's all handwritten. It's hard to translate using the app, but my Japanese is enough to understand it. Because if you try translating with like Google Translate, a lot of the text, because they're cats, like they like to use the like nya to replace some sounds um, in their dialogue, so it doesn't really translate properly sometimes. So yeah, keep that in mind if you do want to get Nekojiru, because their only works are in like one shots in like a comics underground Japan and all that. But yeah, Nekojiru Udon. So next we have Takahama Kan, who did the cover illustration for this issue. This is an interview with her. So I don't know too much about Takahama Kan either, but the story we have is called Funny Faces Family, and it's kind of like a drama, I guess. We follow this girl who, at school, she joins a group of boys because they want to go and find some like ghosts or monsters one day. So here they are running in the rain, but then they sort of scare themselves, so they stop. And she's at the boy's house, and his dad has some really weird magazines lying around. But we go back to school. Oh, sorry. Yeah, are we at school? No, we're home. So the girl is, her family situation isn't that great either. But here they are at school. The news is given that the so-called group leader, the boy here, is leaving, moving schools. Everyone is sad. And the group that they made together to find monsters is disbanded. So here she is talking to him. And oh, I should have said as well, I'm not exactly entirely sure what happened here. It's either that the girl's parents have separated, or this is the stepfather. I actually can't tell who that is, but either way, it's her family is not that great. She's not liking her home environment. And so the story ends with her while walking. She spots someone in a car, and it ends there. So, kind of a mysterious ending. I'm not sure what to make of it because I can't tell who's in the car. Maybe she spotted one of her parents. Uh, Not entirely sure. Maybe that was the parent of the boy who was moving away. So yeah, a bit of a hard ending to sort of figure out, but that's the story. Funny Face's family. I'm not sure either why it's called Funny Face, but yeah, there you go. Okay, next story is titled Yearning or Adoration by Ookubo New. And this one is, I don't really like this one. It's not my favorite. Because, like, overall, this issue in general, I didn't really like it too much. There were only a few stories that were to my liking. But this story is following one of the guys. Who is it? I believe it's this guy here. He gets broken up with because he's pretty selfish in his relationship, and he goes out to a bar and pretty much falls in love real quick with the bartender. It's yeah, and that's kind of it. Again, not my thing, but still read it anyways. But yeah, okay. Next one is one titled Diabetes by Yamamatsu Yuichi on the left. And so in this issue, sorry, in this chapter, we follow this pretty ungrateful husband who's super demanding on what he should eat and what his wife should cook. So yeah, pretty ungrateful guy. I don't like him. But you know, he has these pretty bad eating habits, has a lot of sugar, and then he goes to a doctor and he is diagnosed with diabetes. And this is when he gets, you know, scared, worried, anxious about his health, finally. and he just calls up other people, asking about their experiences with diabetes, and he just gets more worried and more worried, more worried. But in this last little panel, it's saying that it talks about getting cancer. So is this maybe the actual mangaka speaking? I'm not too sure. Like, I can't tell if this is an insert from the mangaka themselves and with them talking about their own health. Who knows? But yeah, that was Diabetes by Yamamatsu Yuichi. Yet another mangaka that I don't know. So everyone so far, besides Nekojiru, I have never heard of before. Okay, next one is titled Your Highness by Fujieda Namie, another mangaka I'm not too sure of. And Your Highness is this guy here, a very isolated, arrogant guy who insists on everyone calling him Your Highness. Why? He's a pretty disgusting person, likes to throw pranks, abuse people, do not like him at all. But there is a theater festival coming up at school, and the teacher's trying to get the class to decide on something, but this boy, Your Highness, decided on everything himself because he wants to create an Akira themed theater production. And so the other classmates, they say, yeah, why not? Let's do it. Why? Because they don't want to get in his way and they don't want him to abuse them, bully them. So he spends all his time just at school creating the set for the Akira play. And there it is. You see the destroyed buildings everywhere, the chaos that happens in Akira. And the teacher's just distraught. She does not want to see it at all. But what happens is there's like a button that one of the students have to push, and when they do, it spawns the giant baby that appears in Akira. I haven't watched Akira in a while, so I don't remember who the baby was, but there it is. That's the baby appearing. But it turns out that after the play, they won the surprise award. So like the play that was the most surprising, and they get all of this juice here, and that's their prize for winning. So I don't know what the point of this story was either, because this boy is pretty an unforgivable person. Like, legitimately just committed crimes throughout high school. So I'm not sure why we're putting a lot of focus on him as if he's a cool guy, but that's the story. Next one, I can't really explain because this was a chapter 2 of a story titled The Drifting Teacher by Parco Kinoshita. Parco Kinoshita. So I'll just flick through this page by page, but this is a chapter 2, so not too entirely sure what is going on. Drifting Teacher, maybe, is that a reference to the drifting classroom? Who knows? Not me right now. Also interesting choice for the eyes of this character. Quite unique. It's like bug eyes, kind of. Yeah. So that was the end of the second chapter. And now we move on to the next story, which I can explain. It is a story that is titled Crepe Myrtle White, or crepe myrtle is like, I think, a type of plant. And so I guess it's a white version of that plant, something like that. The title was pretty hard. I'm not sure what it means, but it's by Tsuno Yuko. Again, another mangaka that I have never heard of before, and it's a little short story of a man meeting this girl randomly on the street who reminds him of a lover he had in the past over here. And it recounts their experiences, their love. But one day he finds shoes at the door of her house. So I believe he assumes that she was cheating, something like that. So he ran away, but in the present he goes and visits her again to find her quite sickly. So this is my understanding of the story. I'm not too entirely sure if this is cheating or not, if he runs away because cheating, but he does leave her. But yeah, in the present, he does visit her again, and she is quite sickly. So it's more of a story that is like a reflection of the past, looking at his nostalgia and all of that. So yeah. Next one is another, this is like chapter 22 of a story titled Terror by Mitsumoto Yoshiharu. Unsure of what to make of this because it's a chapter 22, but I believe this is a reference to a character, maybe Fuji or something. I'll put it in the description. It's definitely a reference. I have seen that character before, but just am unsure of what it is at this moment. Okay, so continuing on, I've got a couple interviews with some different people. But yeah, so far, I have only been able to recognize one manga. And this story here is the second one I recognize. This is by Suzy Amakane, known for her Heta Uma works, and it's called Common Yoshida-kun. And this is a chapter 23, but I believe they are standalone chapters, so I do understand this. It's like the salaryman who buys an egg and tries to auction it off, but he needs the money now, but he has to wait for the auction to go ahead. So for 2 days, he's just in a park with his friend, just waiting for the money to come by, and then it does come by. But yeah, that's the very short one there from Suzy Amakane. Little description, sorry, little illustration by Shinichi Abe. A couple of other columns. This is Dawn with Nirvana by Natsuko, chapter 5. I'm not sure who they are either. So yeah, anything that's like a continuing chapter, like this is chapter 16. I unfortunately won't be able to explain it, but I still will flick through them. This is a story titled Yellow Laika by Nakayama Kaera, chapter 16, which is actually very short. It's only 2 pages. Next one is Manga Hoshi or Manga Star by Mizuno Takayasu, chapter 23. More Heta Uma style as well. So there's a big difference between, 30 years between the 70s and the 2000s. Heta Uma, took over in like, what, the 70s, the 80s, something like that. And now we've got some other, okay, this one I can explain, yes. This is called The Adventures of Prince Caramel, chapters 4 to 6 by Utsuro Akiko. So despite it being chapter 4 to 6, I can still explain what is going on. So this is the prince. He's flying and he finds a garden of flowers and he wants to take one of them, but a little fairy appears on the bottom and tells him that no, they're quite dangerous. Warns him against it, but he still pulls the plant. And so what happens is that the plant, I guess, gets angry and starts chasing him, starts running away. So it's red down to top to bottom, by the way. Running away, runs into this house, and there's something ominous about that house. So now he's in this house, bats are in there, goes exploring, but he finds himself in a bed and goes to sleep, but the fairy is outside warning him to not go to sleep. And that's the end of the 6th chapter there, so it will be continued in the next issue, but that is what is in this issue so far. Okay, this is another story titled Kankurage 1981 by Kankurage, and I'm actually not going to show this because this is a really weird story that I don't like, and I can't really show it anyways on YouTube. So let's just move on to Ebisu. This is Yoshikazu Ebisu, a story titled I'm Not Good at Office Romances. So this is later Ebisu. You can tell it's a little bit less detailed. But what it is that we follow a man, a salaryman, and another woman at the same company, and this man feels that the woman is, taking a liking to him. She might be flirting with him, so he's talking about it with his friend on the rooftop, and his friend tells him to, just go for it. She probably likes you. You like her back. And so she appears on the rooftop, and he proposes. He's sort of the wingman here. He proposes for the two of them, the lady and the man, to go on a date together. But she's like, nah, I'll only go on a date if it's the three of us, which confuses our main guy here because, he thought that she did like him. He thought that she was flirting with him. So all three of them go on a date. Our main guy feels a little left out because the other two are talking. But, she's still showing signs that she might like him, so he's kind of confused. So when he goes to get some ice cream, he looks back and finds them kissing. So it's like, have I been wrong this whole time? And it sort of just ends there with this guy getting the girl in the end. So yeah, the main guy just, I guess, I mean, you kind of feel bad for him. You couldn't really tell what was going on, and it's like a weird scenario, weird situation. But yeah, that was the Ebisu chapter, a very short one in this issue. And if you notice as well, a lot of these chapters in this issue specifically are very short. They're like a couple of pages at a time. But this next one is not a short one, and this is probably my favorite chapter out of the entire issue, this April issue. This is titled Spring Urara or Haru Urara by Nakano Mamoru. And it's sort of like a sci-fi type of story because we're set in a world where it's like a post-apocalyptic world where these tornadoes that you can see from the front, these tornadoes frequently destroy the environment and they spread some dangerous disease, like a mildew disease, because what caused the apocalypse in this world was something to do with like synthetic plants or something. So diseases are a very big thing. And we have Urara walking around exploring with a TV robot over here. This robot that acts as a sort of vessel so she can communicate with her professor. And something that I noticed as well, the art reminds me a lot of Imiri, Sakabashira Imiri. Just looking at like the designs of everything and the setting does remind me a lot of his artwork. So she is on the mission to find a cure for one of the diseases that the tornado brings about, and I believe she does have the disease herself. So with her and her robot, she stumbles across another robot here that has been cultivating some plants that could act as a cure for the disease. And so it brings the two of them to its base, and you can see the tornadoes ravaging the entire city there. Takes them to his base, and all of these plants here are what the robot had been growing to help to develop a cure for the disease that's going around in this world at the moment. But unfortunately, what happens is that the robot starts beeping, the TV one, and to warn them of a giant tornado blasting through. So it comes through and it absolutely destroys the entire like base. All of this was gone. Destroyed all of it that the robot was developing. And the TV robot finally picks up. That's the professor communicating through it, saying that there's still some hope to find the rest of the cure. I think there was like a misdiagnosis, so they still have some time. So they continue on, but this last paragraph is more ominous, saying that the tornado that just hit has like a 90% chance to spread one of the infectious diseases. So I believe the girl Urara is quite doomed. And it ends there. So that was a one shot. It's not a continuation of everything, but of anything, but this is my favorite out of the entire issue, just because of the world and the art condensed in these couple of pages. So that was pretty cool. So let's continue on. Got a couple of other stories that I can't explain. This one is Chiyo Ace by QBB, and it's a continuation of a series. So it's like chapter 16, not too sure, something like that. So QBB as well, you can find his works in Axe too. He was serializing in Axe. So can't tell what's happening. Something like a weird alien, something fantastical. And now we continue on to two stories by the same mangaka. This one is titled Perfect Boyfriend by Shinsan Nameko. And what it is that we have a couple, this girl, and she has a perfect boyfriend, as the title suggests. But there is one weird flaw. She is very embarrassed because no matter where they eat, he always asks for soup. Yep, you heard that right, soup. So she's very embarrassed because she doesn't want to take him out to eat. She doesn't want to eat with her friends because all he does is just ask for soup. And she thinks about, how perfect he is. It's just every single place he goes to, he asks for soup. So when she asks him why he does that, he says, it's just something that makes him feel comfortable. He always just has to check if there's soup at every restaurant. And so she thinks about it and comes up with a scenario, and her solution, and that being that before they eat, she just has to drink soup beforehand, and before he has the chance to ask for soup, she just kisses him because he can taste the soup, I guess. But yeah, that was that story, a weird one. And the next story, also by the same author, is titled The Melancholy of the Girl Who Returned. So we have a different girl who seems to go out to a lot of parties and dinners and all of that, but what she's always anxious about is getting home early. She doesn't want to stay for long, and so she always tries to find the perfect chance to leave and not make it awkward. But it does get awkward, so she keeps working on it to the point where she just isn't invited out to parties anymore because it's kind of weird. But she's more happy with that because she doesn't have to force herself to go out all the time, and she can stay at home and chill. So it does work out for her in the end. Yeah. All right. So we're nearly nearing the end of the issue. This one is titled Gogo Eros by Asai Ice. A couple of Yonkoma works that are erotic in nature. So I'll skip through some of them. A couple other things. This one, I believe, was the runner-up to one of the Garo Newcomer Awards, I believe. And this is titled Night Eyes by Taku Igarashi. And I also really like this as well, and love the art style too. We follow this high school boy who has his eyes, or has a crush on a girl, and he can't stop thinking about her, looking at her, that sort of thing. And so he sort of curses it. He doesn't want to be so obsessed with her, and he holds his left eye in particular to sort of symbolize that he's always looking at her and obsessed with her. And so he decides one day to, I guess, remedy that, to get some moths and pull a wing out and stitch it onto his eye. And I guess there's some sort of symbolism there that you're looking at, and because he also wants to be seen by the girl. But yeah, that was a very interesting one. I do like the art of this one too, but it's very short as well. Everything in this series, in this issue, is short. And last but not least, we have a story titled Gataro by Hatanaka Jun, chapter 15 of the series. And I can't show all of it because if you know Hatanaka Jun, a lot of nudity in his works. So there is a point where I just have to stop because it gets very probably a bit too much for YouTube. And yeah, so I'll stop at this point. But I'll put like all the stuff in the description, all the authors in the description, and the story names as well. And here's a little advertising for some other works, and that's the back. So yeah, that was the April issue of Garo in 2002. So it's, from my reading of it, it's not my favorite issue. A lot of the stories were definitely a miss for me, but it was still cool to just experience what Garo was like in its last year and see what sort of artists were in there, because I would say like 90% of the mangaka in here I did not know, have never heard of before. But yeah, I will, for these Garo issues, I will try my best to put all of the names and the story names and all of it in Japanese as well. So if you do want to search them up, you can search them up just by copying and pasting the kanji. And there's also a spreadsheet as well of all of the Garo issues and all the stories in it with the Japanese names and the English names as well. So I will put that very valuable resource into the description too. So I hope you enjoyed this Garo flip through. I will definitely do more in the future. But yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.